Hello and welcome to Divinatory Tarot. My name is Ewan and today we are looking at the Nine of Cups. So if you've not seen the previous videos in this playlist, please do go back and look at those, as it will give much greater context to the Nine of Cups, as all the cards of the Minor Arcana, indeed the Major Arcana as well, but the Minor Arcana definitely go through a sequence, and that sequence is of course 1 to 10, and each one follows on from the next, so it really does. I know that sounds like an obvious statement, but the point is that they really do affect one another. And of course, please do go back and look at the playlist I've made for the Suit of Wands to give much greater context to those numbers, as they go into much greater depth into the numbers of each of the cards in the Wands. Now, if you want to skip straight to the Divinatory Interpretations of this card, please do go look in the description where I put a timestamp for you, but I do recommend looking through this video at least once in its fullest content before looking at the Divinatory Interpretations, as it will give much greater context to them. So without further ado, let us get into the fantastic and brilliant Nine of Cups. Here we see a deep blue background framing these 9 crystal cups. They're lilac coloured actually, and they're stacked upon one another with these copper-like stems rising from this sea of bean art, which we can barely see at the bottom here, which is also crystal-like. These golden flowers pour this equally golden liquid into the cups, which sprays out and overflows into this mirror-like sea. The zodiac sign of Pisces can just about be squeezed in here. Meanwhile, the sign of Jupiter is also equally squeezed into the card, because there's just so much going on that they barely fit. So in the Nine of Cups, we find the water element in the Sephiro of Yesod, which is also known as the foundation in Kabbalah. And do go back and look at the Nine of Wands video for much greater context on what I mean by that. Here is the concept of a stable and self-reflecting supply of free-flowing emotion. In other words, happiness. Yesod is the domain of the moon, which is reflective. Meanwhile, the Nine of Cups is the reflection upon one's self, and becoming aware of our true nature, consciousness. When consciousness is fully aware of itself, it creates self-perpetuating understanding, which we can call awareness, which in its broadest sense is also called enlightenment. And this is the concept of a hall of mirrors, and that just keeps going on forever and ever and ever and ever, and also the perfect ratio and the spiral, which just keeps going on and on and on and on. And as we talked about in the Nine of Wands, this is a very different kind of infinity to that in 8. 8 is an infinity that goes back on itself, whereas 9 is an infinity that just carries on. It just expands, keeps expanding into goodness knows what. And of course, we talked about in that the wonderful equation of 9 times any number will always reduce back to 9 in its answer if you add the single digits up back to a single digit. And again, do go back and look at that video to understand what on earth I'm talking about. So in our true nature, we discover that it is made up of creation, love, harmony and pleasure. And if we look at the Tree of Life, we'll see how all these concepts pull together in Yesod to become the foundation of our being. And these provide the endless concepts of potential that we call happiness. So what do I mean by all that? So I'm going to go through that statement again. So our true nature being made up of creation, which is Kether, the 1. Again, do go back and look at the Ace of Wands for that. concept. We have love in Chokmah, and do go look at the Two of Cups for more context on that. Harmony, which is Binah, and again look at the Three of Wands and the Three of Cups. And down here we have the 6th Sephirah, Tiphereth, which is that complete pleasure that we saw in the 6 of Cups. And of course it all leads to Yesod, this central pillar. And of course this creates the pillar back up to Kether from Malkuth, where we're all living now. And do go look at the 10 of Wands video to understand what Malkuth is. Now, this happiness is complete contentment. It is the experience of our true nature, an experiential knowledge that can only be tasted by the mind. The things things that we have are not the goal of life, but exist so that we can experience life. Indeed, true happiness is knowing that there is no goal besides the experiences we have with others and in the world. This is the original philosophy of hedonism rather than the term hedonism that we use in everyday speech. And this philosophy is all-inclusive and includes the happiness of others as well as ourselves. Thus we learn to enjoy life fully in a way that allows others to enjoy theirs fully. And this takes discernment, wisdom and compassion in order to be our guiding principles towards this kind of philosophical hedonism. Hereby we ask the question, is the source of our happiness ultimately helpful or harmful with regards to decreasing or increasing suffering, respectively? When we accept that consciousness is unlimited, beyond our limited bodies, there is now no cause for fear, no cause for despair, no cause for want, and no cause for control. Consciousness is the arbiter of all experience, and by accepting its eternal nature, we realize that suffering is the absence of that understanding. And this is very much a Buddhist concept. Of course, you do find it coded within other world religions, but I think Buddhism really says it overtly, and this is very much the concept of the happy Buddha, which is probably the most popular image of the Buddha. He's that large, rather overweight Buddha who's just laughing and having a good time. So how is this all represented within the card? Well, the Nine of Cups is obviously an extremely positive card. It is a toast to good friends and family, the little jokes shared between partners, the gospel choir of the tarot, and the relatives that we see bringing out their best dance moves at a wedding. Here we have Jupiter, which represents expansion, joy and luck within the dreamy and compassionate sign of Pisces. Now, Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Of course, its modern ruler is now Neptune, but it still has many Jupiterian qualities to the sign of Pisces. And of course, this brings out the best qualities of the sign. It is a worship and admiration for life and expanding our empathy towards all things. The overflowing and crowded imagery in this card is an expression of the endless possibilities of life, and by extension, consciousness. The blooming lotus flowers that we see above, much in contrast to those two rotting flowers that we saw in the Eight of Cups. These show us that a level of enlightenment has been achieved in this understanding. We now understand that life is for living, therefore we may as well enjoy it, because it enjoys being, even if our identified egos have lost that enjoyment, which we certainly saw in the previous card. Fortunately, even when aspects of the ego are not enjoying life, other aspects will have the means to reverse this. So this is the concept that the ego is not only an illusion in itself, but it also is an illusion that it is one thing. It's actually, if you think about our concept of self, it is multifaceted. We have many different identities and versions of ourselves. Something that's expressed in a somewhat simple but still quite profound way is in the movie Inside Out, if anyone has seen that. So it is in the 9 that we find these means where the wise parts of the ego can look. And these are creation, love, harmony, and pleasure. This self-sufficient emotional reservoir is represented here by the golden nectar or ambrosia flowing into the cups. And now these two food and drinks were in ancient Greece drunk by the gods, and they have parallels to other potent drinks throughout the world, such as the Vedic Soma, Norse mead, and this is the mead of the gods as opposed to normal mead, the Mayan cacao, and of course the elixir of life, which we've probably all heard about. And there may be, and I can't prove this, but there may be some analogies as well to psychoactive drinks used across the world. Of course, the cacao is a very evident one of that, and so is mead in terms of the alcohol, but I think also perhaps we could say things such as ayahuasca, and there have been some theories that Soma, the Vedic Soma, is also originally made as a psychoactive drink, either from, I forgot what the plant is called, but there's these plants that grow as a reed, you find in the Middle East and in India, but also I believe there are psychoactive mushrooms as well in that part of the world, which may have been put into a drink. Jupiter in Pisces is conceptually linked to the figure of Jesus and the Holy Spirit in Christianity. So Jupiter here is Jupiter is the Father in the Trinity, and Pisces is the Spirit, and the concept of Christ is the Son or the child that links the two together. Thus we see the 9 of Cups is also associated with the Eucharist, and accepting that suffering is an absence of our true nature, and these physical bodies are fleeting compared to the infinite spirit, also known as consciousness. Here we have an acceptance embodied by the crucifixion and the resurrection of Christ. With this understanding, suffering can be seen as an opportunity to step towards happiness, which is our true nature, and this is if we are lacking knowledge of it. This is again the Buddhist concept of accepting suffering with benevolent indifference and choosing whether we want to live in fear or love, and more specifically compassionate love as opposed to attachments. So now we're going to look at the divinatory interpretations of this bright and shiny card. Like its sibling, the 6 of Cups, the 9 of Cups is a beautiful and bountiful card. It is more likely to be well dignified than not, and in this state represents self-compassion, kindness, perfect happiness, contentment, enlightenment, joy, and luck. When ill-dignified, the card represents conceit, smugness, vanity, and frivolousness. The key concept here is self-fulfillment and a contentment that does not pine or complain for more. So again, we see that very intimate link to the Six of Cups there. And I will just bring back the Tree of Life here to just expand upon that before we end the video, and expanding upon that concept within Christianity. And essentially, we see Malkuth as our everyday selves, and we see the Holy Spirit, or being aware of our consciousness in Yesod here, in the 9, the happiness, really realising our true nature. And that leads to this Christ consciousness, that fully embodied compassion and love. And then this of course reveals to us that we are all ultimately one, which is this concept of the Father. And again, this is not in a gender sense. This is rather the divine masculine being the first doing in all of being. And then you realise that everything is one, and that there is no duality, and the divine masculine and feminine are indeed one, the yin and the yang. I think that's not the first video where I've ended it with that analogy. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw today and found it informative, please do hit that like button. I do a lot of research to bring you these videos, as it is very much a passion of mine is metaphysics, and the tarot is such a beautiful and wonderful medium to express these difficult and abstract ideas. And of course, if you want to watch more videos like this and find out more information about the workings of the universe through tarot, please do hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. This is certainly a much happier card than the previous one. And indeed, if you have watched the Eight of Cups, I do hope that this card has made you feel a little better. So may peace be upon you wherever you are, and goodbye.